Hello, all, and welcome to Parent Prep. We are so glad to have some of you joining us today live for our presentation about adjusting to COVID-19 and changes in the school environment. So a few reminders before we get started. First of all, we're still learning how to do this all virtually, and I know you all have been enjoying the learning curve as well. So if you'll give us the same patience that hopefully we're all getting from each other, then we'll ask for your flexibility as we do this today. Remember that these sessions are being recorded for future use. So for anybody who couldn't join us live, everything that is given in this presentation will be recorded for them. During this presentation, you can only see the presenters, so we can't see, they can't see your faces during the whole thing. And nobody can hear you speaking, but there is a way that you can send questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, click on the Q&A feature. Then you'll have the chance to send it with your screen name, or you can check a box if you want to make your name anonymous. And if you want to be anonymous, you have to make sure that you click the box. Otherwise, it will show up with whatever name you've joined as. We'll try our best to answer the questions that come up. We'll answer some as we go, and then we'll give some time at the end for Q&A as well. And if you can send it anonymous, and then it can be sent personally by us so that everybody else can't see it too. And some will answer via the chat, some will answer out loud. Yeah, so we will go ahead and get started.
Okay, hello everyone. So like Marisa said, we are presenting on adjusting to COVID-19 and the changes in school environment. And this will be presented by Marisa, who just gave that lovely intro. She is a prevention clinician at Blendon Middle School. Bennett will be manning the chat. He is a prevention clinician within the high schools. And my name is Maddie, and I am a prevention clinician at Walnut Springs. So go ahead and go to the next one. Perfect. So as we know, this pandemic is just full of ever-changing plans and whatnot. So this pandemic obviously has flipped everyone's world upside down and caused so many disruptions in our daily life. We're in a constant state of change every day, and adjustments are no exception. And that's really no different in the school environment. So when I want to say, obviously, parents, kids, teachers, everybody who's involved in this, a lot of emotions are being elicited right now, whether that be fear, anxiety, depression, feelings of overwhelmment, being stressed, or just really feeling unsafe. And whatever you may be feeling, you, your children, anyone, we want you to know that your feelings are valid and completely normal. No one in this lifetime has ever experienced a pandemic like this, and you guys as parents are trying to take on new roles while maintaining your old ones. So we just want to express that your feelings are very valid. Okay. So in adjusting to a virtual environment, we want to just give you some tips on how to do that. So obviously providing empathy to your children and to yourselves during this time is very important. Kids might not be with their friends and are really adjusting to a new form of learning during this time. So empathize with them that this school year is going to look really different, and there are going to be a lot of adjustments along the way. So another way to do that is just reassure your children that you're always going to be there for them to lean on and feel that support. Some really easy ways to provide empathy are I feel statements. So the structure of an I feel statement is I feel blank when blank because of blank. So an example could be I feel overwhelmed when I see the list of school assignments I have, because that's a lot to do in a day. Another way to provide empathy is just reflecting their emotions. So saying something along the lines of, it sounds like you're feeling very overwhelmed right now. Just hearing that back can be really reassuring for your kids. Another way is paraphrasing what they say. So just simply repeating back to them what you have heard them say. And then utilizing that active listening throughout this whole time, really fully concentrating and understanding them so that they feel heard during this. That can be great, and it can be utilized through both of the reflection and paraphrasing.
So next we're going to talk about creating a learning space in your home where your children can have a good learning environment. So we'll give some examples here, but ultimately the things that your child needs are going to be completely independent and are going to be really need to be individualized by you as a parent, working with your student based on their specific needs. Now, creating a learning space is one of the most important things you can do to help your child succeed in at-home learning. So make it work however your family can, in whatever way works for your living space and your living situation, which is different for everyone. The reason this is so important is, at least one of them, is because our brains work by conditioning, which means that our brain receives cues from our environment, and that those cues tell our brain how to react to situations. So for example, you lay down in your bed and your brain receives cues that it's dark inside, it's dark outside, and it's time to sleep now, and your brain prepares to go to sleep. So in the same way, we want to create an environment where our environment signals to our children's brains, I'm sitting in this space and it's this time of day and I have these things surrounding me, and that means it's time to learn. And so my brain is preparing to learn. So here's an example of a really simple at-home learning space. Here's another kind of home living space. Looks like it's in a kitchen or something. So wherever you are, you want to make sure that there's a limited number of distractions, that you have all the materials that you need within reach. This person has like pens and pencils, a clock, they have like a water and their planner, all within what they can reach right here. The thing I also like about this setup that they have is they've made kind of a makeshift standing desk. So the student can stand up or sit down as they want throughout the day and have a little bit more active environment. You might need to think about your child's personal needs. Does this person need silence in a busy household where they need to be in their room kind of by themselves in a quiet area? Or do they need like the sense of connection where they're not feeling completely isolated and alone, where they need to be in a more like populated living space where they can focus better because they don't feel so isolated? Do they need to be standing or sitting? Do they need to feel really comfortable? Do you need to put a pillow behind their back so that they can feel like it's comfy? Do they need to have a box under their feet so their feet are touching the ground and it's more comfortable to them? Do they like being by a window so they have good lighting? These kinds of things can influence the setup that you might want to make, and just whatever you have available in your home. And children are resilient and they'll be able to make it work with whatever we can give them. And it does not need to be Pinterest perfect. There's all sorts of pictures that I did not include that are, look like they cost hundreds of dollars to like get this set up, and they've got beautiful decorations and everything. And if you don't have the resources for that and the time for that, which most of us don't during a pandemic, then don't stress. Your child will learn the same no matter what. So do some simple things that you can to make it a good place for them, even if it's just cleaning out your kitchen table for the afternoon. So here's some examples of like makeshift learning spaces that people have used. This is something simple you can do. This is a hallway that they're in. I know that because this is my niece. So this is a hallway that they turned into a little office space for her. They bought this table off like used sales market online, and have what she needs for her right there. She's in kindergarten. So whatever simple ways you can that work for you, big families, you can make it work with headphones, and things like this can make it an appropriate learning environment wherever you are. Some kids might also like making it something special, like putting a little candle or like a scented spray where it could be kind of a fun place, somewhere that they want to be during the day. One challenge you will inevitably deal with as a parent doing at-home learning is cell phones. This is from the Common Sense Census Media. Common Sense Media did this census. Tweens, this is 8 to 12-year-olds, are spending 4 hours, 44 minutes on their cell phones, not including for school and homework. This is daily screen use, not just cell phones. And teens are spending, teens is 12 to 18-year-olds, spending 7 hours, 22 minutes on screens outside of school. So we know this is a problem. This is a big deal. So doing whatever you can to manage the distractions that will inevitably come from cell phone use and from having a screen in front of them, so you can limit the amount of time that they actually have to spend sitting in front of a screen. We know it's not an ideal situation right now, and that's not what you as parents would probably choose to have your children doing all day long, but we can make the most of it. And see if we can find a way to help them be less distracted during the day. I really love these little examples here. This is a cell phone hotel. This looks like something you'd see in a classroom. It's a place where kids walk in, they check their cell phone in for the hour, and then they can check them back out when they finish. So if you can make something like this in your home where during time when it's designated school time, you know, the counter, this little corner of the kitchen counter turns into the cell phone hotel. And this is where you put your cell phone, where it can be distraction free, and it doesn't have to be buzzing and distracting you throughout your day. Even if it doesn't feel like it's a distraction to them, it probably is. This is also something you can literally buy on Amazon, a bed for your cell phone, a charging station bed. So look into that. Cell phones aren't just a problem during the school day. They're a huge problem at night. Just yesterday, a student told me that she was up till 5 a.m. talking on the phone to her friends. So you might want to think about having a bedtime for cell phones and having a designated place in your home where they can go and you can know that your children are getting the sleep that they need, because that's hugely important. Even when you don't have that designated start time, which is a challenge, your kids need sleep, and creating a regular sleep routine is healthy for them, and you will get pushback, but it's still an important thing to do. You will inevitably hear the multitude of excuses. I use it as a calculator. So maybe you just go to the dollar store and buy your kid a calculator if that's what they're telling you. And I use it for an alarm clock. This one is the one I get most commonly. So you can show them this really archaic electronic device that is called an alarm clock that will wake them up in the morning so that they don't have their screen in their bed with them all night. Computers, they're sitting at a computer, they have the internet in front of them, there's all sorts of distractions available. So there's websites, and these are Chrome extensions that you can add to your student's Chromebook. This one's called Block Site, this one's called Stay Focused. There's dozens, and they're completely free so that you can install them in your student's computer, and it would probably be a good idea to work with them on this and think about specific sites that they might want to block during certain hours, or like limit the number of hours that they can spend on that website throughout the day so that they're not losing track of time in a way that they don't want to as well, because they have academic goals. It can also be helpful if you just put the computer in a more public space in the house, where if there are people around during the day, there's more accountability because other people will see what's happening on their screen, and especially during their school hours, then people will know that they're expected to be working on their schoolwork, and so they can kind of help them manage that distraction themselves. So let's go on to the next thing that we can do to help students, which is making a schedule. And in talking with some of my fellow coworkers about this, one said, making a schedule is the hardest thing and the most important thing you can do for your student. And that is absolutely true. Children thrive on this consistency and structure and predictability provided by a schedule, and they do not know it. And they don't think that that's the case. They want freedom and flexibility, but they really need the structure, and they will benefit from it in the long term. So I'm putting up some examples here. This is like a color-coded, maybe a more fancy one than other ones that I'll show, but I think it does have some good principles, like waking up before 9 a.m. and some of the duties that you need to do before you wake up, or like immediately after you wake up, just to like eat breakfast and get ready and make your bed and get ready for the day. Let's see. When you're making a schedule, it's really important to be deliberate about it, like to really sit down and think about how we're going to do it, and then be totally flexible when your schedule goes up in flames. This could be a total trial and error situation, something that you have to, revise over the many weeks and however long we'll be doing this virtual and blended learning environment. I think one of the most important things you can do is work with your student to create the schedule. If it's a schedule that you're imposing on them and they have no interest in it, then they're not going to follow it. But if they have some buy-in because it's something that they've created with you, and they also want to follow the schedule and it matches their needs and their interests, then they're way more likely to follow the schedule that you set up together. I like the schedule he listed here too, because it provides some breaks between academic time and other things that they need to do around the house, like chore time, eating food, and just creative time or doing fresh air time. So experiment and adjust as needed according to what comes up. Maybe follow up with your student periodically and check in on how the schedule's working with them and make changes as needed. Here's a list of questions you could use as you're helping your child make a schedule. I'm not going to read through each of these, but you might just think about like, what times of day do you like studying? When do you feel like you have energy? What do you like to study and what do you not like to study? Consider putting the more preferred schedule topics or study activities in the most energizing part of the day for your student, or maybe sandwiching less preferred activities between two more preferred activities, or putting a break immediately after activities that you know your student's not going to enjoy. So they have some sort of like a reward afterwards. Schedule in breaks, schedule in lunch, and then ask, how can I support you? How can I help you meet your goals in keeping the schedule that you want to keep? And I think your students will respond better to that when you check in with them, if they know that it's my schedule, I made this, I put this together. Depending on the age of your student, these questions may or may not be appropriate. For younger students, you may just have to know and be from observing your own child, like, what do I know about them, and what's easiest for them, what's most difficult for them, when is the most energizing part of their day, and just answer those questions for yourself. And then they can help you by doing things like coloring the schedule or like drawing pictures associated with each activity so that they can know what's coming next in their day. Here's another example schedule here on the right. This is a more simple one that just includes like a basic structure of ideas of things that you might do in each hour of each day. Simple's totally okay. Consider using a hard copy schedule where it can be like taped up in their study area, or that they can like kind of hold with them, maybe write check marks on it or cross off when they've finished an activity. Younger kids, you might want to do pictures, like I said. Helping them color them with you could be really engaging for them. Get some buy-in from them in that way. You could also put like post-it notes throughout the day, kind of ordered in what they're going to do from time to time. And then when they're done with it, they can take the post-it note off the wall and throw it away and say, I'm done with that activity. I'm moving on through my list and I'm just about done. I'm almost to my next break. And that can be really energizing for them. So a few more thoughts about this. I guess before I say that, this is another simpler example of a to-do list or a plan for the day. The way that this one is organized is these, the darker shaded circles, this is representing the amount of time you'll spend on an activity. So the idea behind this is that students can understand how much time they're going to spend on something better when they see it written out visually. So like this would mean I'm spending 1 hour on history, 2 half hours. And so maybe they can break it up into 2 half-hour chunks, but they know that their history takes typically 1 hour. And then cleaning my room, that'll only take 10 minutes. So I'll put in a little sliver there, and then they can cross it off as they get it finished. So one of the hardest things about at-home learning is that there's these blurred lines between when is school time and when is home time. So one thing you can do as a parent is to create more concrete boundaries around what is school time, reminding them that in the morning they need to get ready for school, which means getting up, brushing your hair, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, making your bed, all the things that they would normally do before school, they should still be doing before they log in to start school. And then when you're done with school, you put things away, you finish your schoolwork, maybe you clean up, and you know that you're done for the day. You're not going to do any more work, so it's not lingering on your mind. And some of you parents may also benefit from using this in your working from home to set good boundaries for yourself about when you're done working for the day. Sometimes initiation or starting tasks can be a challenge, especially in the morning, especially if your kid's not a morning person. So you might set up with them like a getting started routine where it's like, okay, every morning, first thing I go to my desk and I open up my laptop and I log in. I'm going to log into Schoology. I'm going to log into Apex, whatever I know I'm going to need for the day. I'm going to read my emails. I'm going to turn on my study music. And that's what I know I need to do to get started. And that can make it a little bit more manageable than thinking like, I have no idea what I need to do today. And so I'm going to waste time because I don't even really know how to get started. Usually once they're sitting at their computer and they've got like Apex or Schoology, whatever their assignments are kind of pulled up, it can be easier to actually start what they need to be doing. Sleep hygiene is a huge important part of a child's well-being and a teenager's. Wake up and go to sleep at set times, even when they don't need to be at school early in the morning. Try to maintain some consistency from week to week and through the weekends about what time they're waking up and going to bed. And as much as you can, even though sometimes parents aren't physically there to help, it can still be really, really a huge part of helping them in their studying at home. A last thing you can do is make a list of things that they can do during their free time and breaks, so they're not like going to the default of using social media or turning to their phones for video games, but help them put together like a list of things they like to do outside or that they like to do inside that are more active, that are screen-free things, or like developing skills or talents, things that they just enjoy that can make their days more meaningful besides just feeling like they're doing homework all day. Timers can be your best friend with this. They can help students really like keep track of time and stay on task. You can buy your timer. This is a shout out to Blendon Bulldogs. You can also just Google the word timer, and Google has a great timer right there. It'll beep when you put the amount of time in it and it finishes up. So these can be used for great resources, especially if your student has a subject that they don't really like. You can give them a reward at the end of, say, 20 minutes of studying that subject. Breaks are another really important thing to schedule into your student's day. Schedule regular breaks just like they would have in their school day, and encourage them to leave their workstation. Encourage them to use some breaks to do screen-free activities. Make a list of planning things that you'd like, they like to do. Go walk the dog, call a friend, something like that that they could enjoy. Have a healthy snack. Make sure they're still having fun during the day, because this is a hard time of life. They're not getting the social interaction that they normally would. Help them find a way to make it fun. Now, surprisingly, not to that yet. To non-surprisingly, there's a lot of benefits of breaks. There's many like health benefits of having especially exercise breaks, but also cognitive. And people are better students when they get regular breaks throughout the day. And here's an example of another good break you can have: yoga exercises. You might be surprised to hear that you get a lot of pushback from your student about breaks, especially the more high achieving students who are worried about getting good grades and work really hard to study hard. So here's some responses you could give to some of these like classic complaints about breaks. A student says, "I don't need a break." That's great. You're supposed to take breaks before you need them so you don't get too burned out during the day. Take it, and so you'll keep feeling energized throughout your whole day. Breaks don't help me. Taking breaks can be a skill, and you might be doing it wrong. You might be taking too many breaks. Your breaks might be too long. They might be too short. Try mixing it up, doing different things during your breaks. Make them work for you, because they really can be helpful. I won't be able to finish all my schoolwork. You can explain to them that their brains will work more effectively if they're taking breaks. As counterintuitive as it might sound, it's helpful in the long run, because they will be more efficient. They'll be spending less time on schoolwork and be able to feel like they have the energy to do the things that they need to. If they have a hard time returning to work after breaks, particularly your elementary school students, that's when you can use those timers and help them say, "Hey, look, your timer says you've got 2 minutes left on your break, and then we're going to go start your reading for 10 minutes." And make the breaks frequent enough that they feel like they aren't waiting forever to get to the next break. If it's hard for them because they get so like hyped up or energized during a break, you may have them do more quiet, relaxing activities like Legos or coloring or something like that can help them kind of settle down and might be easier to break from if they only get 10 or 15 minutes to work on it during their break. One of the questions or concerns that we got prior to this presentation was, what do I do if I'm not home during the day? And this is a hard challenge, and you're not alone in feeling like this is one of the biggest difficulties of managing the at-home virtual blended schedule. So here are just a couple ideas of what you might do if you're not able to be home during the day. First of all, allow for autonomy by helping your student make the schedule themselves. If it's something they want to do, they're more likely to do it. If it's something you want them to do, they're less likely to do it. So help them feel like they're the ones that want to do it this way and that it's their schedule, their way. Make expectations really clear for them. This might mean like before you go to bed at night or when you wake up in the morning, you're walking through their schedule with them. And so that they know that you know what the schedule is and that you're expecting that they'll walk through or they'll follow the schedule throughout the day, even when you're not there. If you're able to, it can be helpful to check in through phone or video calls. You might ask something like, do you need any help with anything? Are you confused about what you're working on? You might ask them to report on what they've done that day, not as a way to criticize or shame them if they haven't done it, but as a way to offer praise if they have, and to say, "I'm so proud of you for sticking with your schedule. That's great." If that's not the answer you get, then maybe you say, "That's okay. It sounds like it's been a hard morning. Maybe when I get home today, we could talk about adjustments to the schedule or ways we can make it easier for you to get your work done tomorrow." So provide that accountability and empathize with them if it doesn't work right according to what they hoped and what you hoped. when you are home, provide that consistency that they need. Be present, put your phones down, and try to provide like good, healthy times just for them to socialize with you and connect with them as their parent. Especially bedtime routines are really meaningful and can be important for our elementary school kids. And then last, I would say have realistic expectations. It's hard to be productive when you're at home and you have all the fun things that you could ever want right in front of you. So be realistic about what your student may or may not be able to accomplish in a day, and help them to have realistic expectations for themselves too. And think of their whole well-being when you're considering, like, is my child doing okay with things right now? So some of the ideas that we had for incentives and consequences, this is another question that we got about how you can manage, like, if my student's not doing their work during the day. And so you can provide incentives if they are doing their work and doing what's expected of you. Maybe we do or go to a favorite dinner spot. You get to choose what we're going to do today for our family activity. Maybe if you don't do it, there's consequences like an earlier bedtime or doing dishes, taking out the trash, then you get an extra chore assigned to you, something like that. But make it a collaborative process, like we've talked about, that it's not you versus them, but that it's you working together and saying, this is what we've agreed on as the consequence of whether you do or do not get your work done for the day.
Okay, so just during, again, this pandemic, we do tend to switch from the virtual format into a more blended and in-person format. So when we are in school, I just encourage you to encourage your children to follow those precautions at school, especially if they want to stay in school, because right now, obviously, there's an uptick in cases in Ohio. So just continue to encourage your kids to follow those social distance guidelines and wash your hands and wear your masks properly. Explain to your kids that the schools may need to close again, and that there will be some more adjustments ahead. It's really important to utilize the skills that have been previously discussed, such as recreating that designated learning space and making that schedule so that the transition back into a possibly fully remote learning format, if we do go back to that, is an easier transition. And again, just continue to approach these conversations with empathy. Kids may be showing excitement to go back into a virtual learning format, but a lot of the kids that I've been working with are so excited to be in school and just really have that interaction with peers and staff. So just always approach these conversations with empathy. And it's really important to check in with your kid, no matter if they are completely virtual or if they are in this blended format. It's really important to kind of be calm and empathetic when engaging in these conversations. Engaging in creative ways. If they're only saying like, oh, it's fine, or if you have a younger child, some kids don't verbally express their feelings, and it can be more expressed in games or drawings. And things like feelings Uno is a super easy way to engage in kids with how they're feeling. And kids also often tend to mimic their adults in their lives and the emotions. So just make sure to practice managing your own emotions and providing yourself self-care during this time. Again, your kids might not even know what they're feeling. We're going through a whirlwind of emotions here, and they might not have the emotional vocabulary to even express that. So just help them identify and name their emotions, whether it be stressed or anxious, frustrated, all the emotions we've already said. It's really a good way to kind of name it to tame it. So these feelings, you can use a feeling chart to help them kind of pick out what they may be feeling. That's a great way visually. They can see the faces and they're like, oh yeah, I look in the mirror and sometimes I look like that. So that's just another really helpful way to kind of check in with your kids during this time.
One of the biggest challenges we're all facing right now is getting social needs met, and your students are the same, that they're going to struggle with getting their social needs met. And this situation might occur, especially if your student is not in the same cohort as some of their friends. Like they are on the off weeks when their friends are in school, so they're kind of hard to stay in touch throughout the day. So here's just a few ideas, and one of the best things you can do to get other ideas if you are interested is just Google this, because there's tons of blogs, there's tons of like help sites with tons of ideas. So this is not an exhaustive list. You can turn there too. So one idea is to create peer study groups where you could meet together on the same night every week, say, and virtually talk through like a subject that you are struggling with or that you're doing well in, that you want to help friends with, and talk through some of the assignments that you're working on. Create a virtual game night. Among Us is a popular game right now that students can play when they're separated. Zoom Pictionary. So Zoom has a feature where you can put up a whiteboard and you can play Zoom Pictionary with friends or with cousins, with relatives around the country, or even down the street if you're socially distancing. And you can do a distance scavenger hunt where everybody has the same scavenger hunt and they go find things around their room, and then they can show each other and have a race to see who can get back fastest. One of the interesting things I saw about like social needs and getting them met right now is to focus your energy on quality over quantity. Sometimes in high school or middle school, even elementary school, you feel like more friends is better, and that's what makes you feel popular and included. Maybe helping your student realize that having one or two really good friends can be just as meaningful and even more meaningful right now than having a lot of friends, because they don't have access to a lot of friends and they can't go to big parties. So to focus on really building deep and meaningful relationships with one person or two people can go a long way in helping them feel like they're included and that they belong in a social environment. You might also just help them reframe this time and say, hey, this is exciting. You get to practice making new friends. I don't know how often parents ever like consciously sit down with their student and say, this is how you make new friends. And this is a skill that you'll need to learn for the rest of your life, because you'll make new friends at every new job you have. Maybe you can reframe it in that way though and say, this is a chance for you to meet new people and make new friends in a way that you haven't had before, especially if you've never moved and they've had the same friends for a long time. So there's other ways to look at this that your students might benefit from hearing from you.
So one of the things that's really important, as we notice stress levels increase, we can also see possible substance use increase. So being aware of possible signs that students may be experimenting or using different substances can be really beneficial. Being on the lookout for drastic mood changes. Now, anybody who has worked with or known a teenager knows that these can be pretty standard for teenagers, but if we are seeing an increase in depressive, angry, or irritable moods, those can be a good indicator that there may be something else going on that we might want to check in with that student and see, if there's a way that we can help support them or just gather a little bit more information. You might also want to be on the lookout for changes in interest. So loss of interest in activities that were once really important and kind of critical to who they were. That can be an indicator that they're trying to find other avenues to explore those interests or explore themselves and the peers that they're connecting with. Along with peers, look at change of friendships. If we're seeing students leave old friends for a new group of friends, that can be a possible warning sign that maybe these new friends are part of this group that may be experimenting with substances, and that they may be kind of exposing the student to that. Being aware of changes in behaviors are pretty major. So these might be things like sleeping more or less than usual, avoiding eye contact, ignoring breaking curfew, acting irresponsibly, frequently asking for money, stealing, locking of bedroom doors, if that's kind of abnormal for them, which a lot of times for teenagers, it's not. But if we're seeing that increase, then absolutely that can be a sign. Making secretive calls or secretive texts and emails, isolating from others, damaging relationships with family or friends, making excuses, or just outright lying. If we see them start to withdraw from classroom participation or see their grades start to slip, resisting discipline or feedback, and if we see consistent missing schoolwork. You might also notice some various physical changes that would follow in suit with possible substance use. That might be things like poor hygiene or changes in appearance in general, glazed or bloodshot eyes, frequent runny nose or nosebleeds, paranoia, irritability, anxiety, and fidgeting, changes in mood or attitude, difficulty staying on task or staying focused, small track marks on arms or legs. If we're seeing an increase in wearing long sleeve clothes, even in warm weather, which I know we're going into some of the colder months. So just kind of being mindful of what your student would normally wear during this time. Increased pupil size, so larger, but it can also be smaller. Cold, sweaty palms or shaking hands, sores on the mouth, headaches, puffy or swollen faces, extreme tired or extreme hyperactivity, rapid weight gain or weight loss. And whenever we're talking about substance use, one of the main things that we want to kind of reinforce is being aware of the facts. So this is an acronym that stands for family history, age of first use, cravings, tolerance, and surroundings. So family history can have a very big impact on the potential for substance use to become more severe and actually develop into an addiction, as well as age of first use. If we're still kind of developing our brains, then that can impact our ability to kind of defend ourselves from that addiction. If we start to see cravings, if we start to see, the student feeling like they need something, need a substance, need whatever it might be, that's a good sign that, it's starting to breach into a more severe type situation. Tolerance, if we're seeing an increase in the amount of substance that it takes to, achieve the same results, then absolutely that's something to be aware of, because that could lead to the potential for overuse or overdosing. And then being aware of surroundings. And so being aware of kind of what family members are modeling, being aware of what might be present in their room, in their cars if they have them. So just kind of being aware of what's around them and in their environment.
So here are some tips specifically for you as parents that you can practice yourself to hopefully cope with the pandemic and also other changes that might be happening in your life or that might happen in the future. The first one here we have is to practice acceptance. I love this circle of control activity that I have here. I'm an example of. This one's actually specifically related to the pandemic too. And this might be something that you really examine in your life and think about, what kind of things can I control and what can I not control? And if there are things that you can't control that are bothering you, then you can practice acceptance for those things. And that doesn't mean that those things are okay or that you're happy there in your life or that you're happy that's the way it is, but that you're acknowledging that there's some things you can't change and that you can accept that it's a part of your life right now and there's nothing that you can do about it. There's a lot of those things in our lives that we cannot do anything about and that we will not be able to change in the foreseeable future. And the more we fight against it, the more painful they will become. So we might be able to use this with our child too. For example, let's say we have a situation where the technology is not working. We're just about to log in with a teacher or something, and the computer has a total breakdown and it's not going to work. You might walk through your student some of these ideas, like what about the situation can we control? Because not the computer. We all know technology is not under our control like we think it is. And so there are some things we really can't control. We can't control if the internet's going to stop working today, because sometimes that happens, and we can't control if the computer is going to choose to restart right now, because sometimes it does those updates at the worst times. So we might help them focus on the things that we can control in the situation. Things like how we react to the situation, choosing to contact the teacher to explain the situation in a calm way and ask to reschedule. We might even be able to control things that might be preemptive, like I can choose to charge my computer every night so that tomorrow when I need to get on that meeting with that teacher, it's not going to die the second I start it up because it's fully charged. Or I can choose not to procrastinate my schoolwork so that when we're having that 9 p.m. meltdown over technology problems, it's not due the next day, because we've all been there doing that. So we might help them focus on these things that they can control and to say the rest of it's outside of our control, so we're not going to worry about that, and we're not going to fixate on those things right now. I love for any Daniel Tiger fans out there, I love this quote, and you'll have the song stuck in your head if you know this one. Things may change, and that's okay. Today we can do things a different way. That's a great attitude to have as we look at this pandemic moving forward. Things will change. They just will. And we have to come to expect that. And if we do accept it and expect it, then we're better prepared to meet the challenges that will come. And we can remind ourselves today we can do things different than we did yesterday. And that's going to have to be okay because it's all we can do. Another idea of things that you can do is to think about the way that you're thinking about things. Our thinking is really influential in how we feel and how we act. And so it's worth like taking some time to sit down and think about our thinking. All or nothing thinking, sometimes called black and white thinking, can be really detrimental and can help us feel, make us feel really negative emotions or really harmful emotions at times. And so we want to try to avoid it as much as we can. Example of this might be like labeling the pandemic as completely bad. In doing that, we're saying there's no black and white, or there's no middle ground in between there. It's completely bad. Nothing good has come from this, and nothing good will come from this. And that kind of negativity can be harmful to us. It prevents us from seeing anything good that might come from this pandemic, even though there are a lot of challenges. Another one might include using things like, I'm never a good parent. I'm never home to help my student. I'm always doing the wrong thing as a parent. And that really cuts ourselves short because there's no way you're always doing things wrong as a parent. Your child would probably not agree with you. Well, sometimes they might, but hopefully they wouldn't always agree with you that you're doing everything wrong as a parent. If you're on this video right now, you're doing things right. You're wanting to do good things and you're wanting to help your child. And so you can think about yourself in a less of an all or nothing way, and that can be helpful to you. Other tips to avoid the all or nothing thinking might be cognitive reframing, which is this idea of looking at things in a different way. Two examples to help you do that are to look for silver linings, look for things that might teach us, hey, this pandemic isn't 100% bad. There are good things. For example, dad gets to work from home, which means we save gas money, and he gets to spend that extra 45 minutes he would have spent driving, being with the family. Or we getting a chance to practice the piano more during the day, whatever those silver linings might be personally for you and your family. Looking for those can help us see things in a new light and see things from a new perspective. And it doesn't undermine the fact that we're going through hard things. We can still validate that and acknowledge that things are difficult for us. And we're not trying to fake ourselves into being happy or to thinking things are better than they are, but we can acknowledge that there probably are good things happening still. We can also practice gratitude for the things that we do have, which this is a perfect time to start thinking about gratitude during Thanksgiving season, and really look and evaluate your life and think, what is going right and what is good? What am I grateful for that I do have that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise? Adjust expectations. When I got married, this was like the best piece of advice I think I got from one of my a teacher. He said, you're getting married, so here, let me tell you what to do. Lower your expectations. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do for ourselves as parents too, is to say, are my expectations too high? If I'm constantly feeling disappointed or feeling maybe these uncomfortable emotions, maybe I need to think about what I'm expecting from things and adjust it a little bit, adapt it to the idea that we're in a pandemic and people aren't expecting perfection from us right now. Things will be different, and that has to be okay for now. The worst thing you can do is fall into this perfect failure trap. This is the idea that if I'm not doing things perfectly, if I'm not being the most perfect parent right now, then I must be a failure. And that's absolutely not true. There's all sorts of shades of gray in between there. And there are many good parents who make bad choices at times, and every parent does that. So don't think of yourself as being a failure just if you're not perfect. Adjust your expectations, look at your standards realistically, and see the good in yourself. And watch for those things that you are doing well and maybe put your focus on those things.
Okay, so this is also very, very important as a parent because of all the reasons Marisa just told us, but it is so important for you to take some time to yourself too. And you might be thinking, what time? The self-care does not have to be the luxurious thing that people kind of hype it up to be. Self-care can be as easy as eating your favorite foods, watching your favorite TV show, engaging in maybe a 5-minute meditation, taking that shower. As you can see, there's plenty of kind of options over here. And there's even more. If you need help thinking what is self-care, Google it. There's so many good resources for you. And as parents, I'm gonna use that stereotypical like cliche, but it is so important to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be helping your kids, your spouses, anybody in your life as effectively as you want to be. Because as the airplane metaphor always says, you have to put your mask on first before you can help others, because you're not going to be useful without any oxygen, or with this in mind, taking care of yourself and being there for your family.
Okay, so wrapping up here, there might be times when it's time to seek professional help. And so here you can read in young children, here are some signs you might be looking for. In older children and teens, some other signs you might be looking for. Some common themes you might see in when to seek professional help, when to look for a counselor or a therapist for your child. Sleep problems is often one of the first things we see. Changes in appetite, changes in mood, some similar things to what Bennett talked about with some signs of substance use. Changes in academic performance, being socially withdrawn, things like that might be a signal to you as a parent. Now, what you're looking for is things that last for weeks or even months at a time, that aren't solved by making changes within the home, or that are significantly interfering with your child in the home, at school, or socially with relationships with friends. So you can look up lists like this on the internet. Like this one was from the National Institutes of Mental Health. If you Google it, there's all sorts of things. And when in doubt, you can always turn to someone in the school, like the school counselors or the other mental health clinicians inside the school, and ask them for advice or for a consult about whether or not it might be time to seek professional help. And they'd be happy to talk to you about that. An important thing to know about seeking professional help is this does not mean or give any indication about how high quality of parent you are. It does not mean that you're a failure as a parent if you need help with your child's mental health. In fact, it's one of the best things and most healthy things you can do is help them manage their mental health in a good way. Doctors still take their children to see doctors, even though they have all the knowledge that they need to take care of them themselves. They still need help. They still go see their own pediatricians and seek help when they need it. And it's not embarrassing. It's not a problem. There's not that stigma attached that your therapist or the counselor that you see is going to judge you or criticize you as a parent. That's not the case. And they'll know that you're doing the best you can for your child, and that sometimes an extra set of eyes through a professional lens can be really beneficial and can do a lot for your child. And often your child won't need a long-term intervention. Sometimes it's as simple as seeing a counselor for maybe 4 hours between over a month time, and something about talking to someone else and receiving validation or skills help can be really meaningful and important to students and to children, and can prevent more serious problems in the future. So here are a few resources we can turn to. I guess while I'm on here, I'll click on this one and show you. This is the Westerville City School District has this. And so if you go to their website here, you can see this resource page. And if you go down to this part, you can see a list of all the school counselors and clinicians in the school. So on this page, it has them organized. Here's the district team, and then they're organized by elementary school. Scroll down to middle school, and then to the high school team. This has all the school counselors listed and which grades they cover, or names by last name. It also has any mental health specialists, social workers, the prevention clinicians, which is our role. And you can contact them through this way if you're wanting extra help, if you have questions or anything that you're concerned about with your student. Then any of us are happy to hear from parents and to get you the help that you might need, if that's helping internally or referring to outside resources, whatever it might mean for you personally.
So this right here is a resource to kind of just have a little bit of experience walking through what it might be like to be aware of possible places that students may hide substances. When you go into the tour, it will actually take you to a picture of a bedroom where you can click on different objects, and it'll break down and explain how that might be used to hide substances or, things like that. For example, if you click on the flower vase on the bookshelf, it is actually a bong. And it kind of talks a little bit about how that might be kind of problematic. So the second link in the PowerPoint is a video walking through what you might find within a teenager's car that would be, again, places to look for if you suspect substance use. Both are great resources kind of to give you a little bit of experience and a little bit more knowledge on what you're looking for if you're concerned.
This is another number that we put up. This is the National Suicide Hotline, 800-273-8255. 8255 is TALK. So if you ever do have concerns about suicide, if your student starts making comments about wanting to end their life or harm themselves and you're looking for someone in an emergency situation, you can always call this hotline, and they're also always welcome to call this hotline in an emergency when you can't reach any of us during regular work hours. So do we have any questions from the chat that we can go through? Okay, looks like there's nothing in there yet. So if anybody has one really quickly that you want to type in the chat, we'll stick around for a minute. Otherwise, if you could get your phone and you can either type in this link into your browser or in a website, you can type in this link or scan this QR code with your phone, and it will pull up a little survey getting some feedback from anyone who attended the survey or the presentation today. And we'd love to hear from you, hear any questions or thoughts that you have about the parent prep presentations. And I don't know how long that will be open, but I'm sure it will be through the next couple days while we're still doing parent prep. So if we don't have any questions, looks like we're still good. Okay. Well, then we want to thank everybody for coming today. We're grateful to the Westerville Education Challenge and Parent Council for their support with the Parent Prep program. And please feel free to reach out to counselors and members of your school as needed for any help or any questions or concerns that came up listening to this presentation.